Hello, YouTube Internet. This will be a rumination. This will be a rumination on something when I work on stuff. I kind of let things go through my mind. It's actually not that simple, straightforward, because I take a break when I work on a painting. I take a break, and whatever comes up, I reflect on it. Anyway, today I took a break. And I wanna ruminate on this. I feel compelled to talk about this because in my last couple of videos, I like exposing the bastards. I like exposing the bastards from the point of view that the world is not what it appears to be. I've said this. The world is not what it appears to be. And these are just sort of itinerant thoughts that hit me. And the subject of the world is not what it appears to be, I think the jig is up. And I'll tell you why I think the jig is up on the propagators of the deception. And I'm talking about this because YouTube and social media and everything is quite preoccupied, like I say, to expose the bastards. But even within the group that is exposing, I suppose it's the controlled opposition idea, the way that Lenin said, in order to fight your opposition, you become the opposition, or something like that. Let me move my screen over. I can't see properly. So my thought on this is that somewhere I have this inclination, a perception that the jig is up. And I'll sort of tie it into what I've been saying on my videos previously, that I actually am quite convinced that we're undergoing a very clear and obvious extermination. And there are great people talking about this on many different levels. And also people that are talking about this are very likely involved in that what is understood to be controlled opposition, because you always want to have, as a controller, your foot in the door. But now here's the thing that really is disturbing. Obviously it's very disturbing to me, the idea that we're facing a monumental extermination by those that are amongst us that have decided they're losing the control that is necessary for them to be part of this experience. And this is obviously, for the rest of life, the millions of species, it's a very dangerous moment in time. That's my conclusion. And in order for this what I consider to be my clan to rally, the people of integrity and honesty, and quite frankly, I've said that I'm not a big proponent of truth, because truth is susceptible to this controlled opposition idea. And it can be easily manipulated through CGI, computer-generated images that are everywhere, and people that are still thinking that Kennedy was killed by a lone gunman, and Arabs with box cutters took down a bunch of buildings, and all this kind of stuff, and the hoaxes that are being perpetrated to keep a population docile and afraid. So I made a t-shirt, "Don't be afraid." We are in some format or other now facing a crucible. And I think, like, as I think about this, and you know how committed I am to exposing what has occurred at 3/11/11, the Fukushima disaster. It's not the tsunami, it's the nuclear plant that blew up. And the reason this has become my focus is because it is what I consider to be the jewel in the crown, the highlight of this extermination. And the reason I was wondering about this, why would this occur? Why would this small group, and I believe it to be a relatively small group, and it's difficult to identify this group. If I could, I probably wouldn't be alive. I think this is how it works. This is how history has always shown us. And artists in general, the ones that are representing the best part of humanity, make work that physically represents that what it is. Now, when I say that, what I'm communicating and what I've said about the art that I'm attracted to, in some way, bypasses the subject and remains within the material. So, it's like if you look at paintings like this, they are paintings that I produce in order to represent themselves in its essence. Like they're produced in a way that reflects the medium as the subject. You have to see them in order to appreciate and understand what I'm talking about. And then, of course, I have fun and, I impose subjects because people love a good story. People love to have a good story. And, in this one here, it's the well-known painting represented in the visor by Monet, Déjeuner sur l'herbe, breakfast in sur l'herbe. I think it's in the woods or something. Or is it autumn? Anyway, the idea of being able to separate that sort of noise in the back of our minds, and artists have always attempted to separate the noise, like the good ones, I'm talking about the good ones, to get rid of that subterfuge and the noise, to try and bring people to the awareness that there is a reality that is independent of any manipulation. This is the beauty in a painting, in art, and it documents this quite well. I have my favorite artists, and people can have their favorite artists, from people like Caravaggio or through the classical period. I'm not a big fan of Poussin or people like that, but there are people that represented a fundamental nature, and what I refer to as our honesty, not the truth, but our honesty, and it's represented in the material. What am I getting at? Now, I believe here, I'm gonna synopsize something I've said before, that in 1938, these two scientists called Strassman and Hahn invented a process called nuclear fission. And it has become the default mechanism of the deceivers, people that attempt to keep us locked into a vision of the world, a world view that is dominated by a narrative that is not real, a narrative that is superimposed on our true knowledge, on who we really are. We have what I say a birthright, and I always come back to this. Our birthright that makes us valuable to each other is to be decent, good people that do the right thing. And this has been supplanted with, there are many good explanations why, for example, a country says, oh, we need to get you young people out here and kill somebody over in a country that's 10,000 miles away. So how do you convince a population that knows that is fundamentally outsane? How do you accomplish that? Well, you create an elaborate system of education and social institutions that propagate this narrative on some level. That's how it works. And the artists that now are alive, that are being recognized for their brilliance, are all part of this deception, because they won't open their pie holes on what it is that their fundamental mission might be. I say might be because they may not be totally aware of everything going on. I mean, we're very intuitive, but there is this fundamental notion, if you're a creative person, you want to actually represent something that's real. It's an irony because you're looking at a picture that is on a two-dimensional surface that is actually pretending to be three-dimensional. So there is a deception there, but I still like it because it's like a tool. It's something that can be used. And, quite frankly, I am a great adherent to any trick, and I'm saying this to people working out there in the art. You use any possible trick, anything you have available to you to make the image, to present your vision to the world, whichever way that works. And I'm also someone now that does not reveal all the things that I use in order to present my image. I mean, anybody clever and for the most part can figure it out. But the idea is to create such a strength in the work that is unequivocal, and people marvel and say, oh, what a mystery, it's amazing. That's a big point in it. So before I get too winded on this, I'm reflecting on the fact that we're now facing an extraordinary moment in time. And this is not like everybody says, well, everything is an extraordinary moment in time. Well, you have to admit, if you accept the fact that we could potentially lose all life on this planet because of our behavior, primarily what I was starting to get into, Strassman Hahn inventing nuclear fission, something that can't be turned off. Everything else, man-made, can be turned off. But nuclear fission, for whatever reason, we haven't figured out how to turn it off once it starts. Why is that? You see, I'm thinking, why would that be? Why would it be that we allow or we adhere to someone's invention that is so fundamentally contrary to our very nature? Because you have a cycle of life and death. This thing doesn't have a cycle of death within the framework of what we understand to be life and death. It doesn't turn off. It's going on for millions of years. And some of these isotopes actually have a half-life of close to 1 billion, I guess. It's like it's ongoing. It's inconceivable. So I'm saying this was invented because the jig is up. You see, the jig is up. So now there are a few people, and who is trustworthy in this? This is obviously another question. Who is trustworthy? And I myself have, to the extent I have limited exposure through my work. I mean, I've had fabulous experiences in doing my work in shows and all that. But in the last 6 years, there has been very little activity for me, especially since I have been very desirous to open my pie hole, finally. I mean, I was kind of like bobbing along and doing my stuff until this starts to make sense. I guess it's a form of maturity. We all kind of get to the stages at different times. But I generally have the sense that people don't get to this level of understanding and depth and grow deeper into this notion of a worldview that encompasses all species, not just my personal self. Like, this is what I'm feeling I'm doing in my work. I'm encompassing the rest of life in some way or other, like the people that I admire in the art anyway. So what I'm thinking is the world is not what it appears to be to those of us that have understood there is a difference between truth and honesty. And what do we do about that? And I sense that this is now, through social media on YouTube, there is a concise group of people that are having an influence in exposing the jig, which is why this deadly invention was created and used as a default mechanism to get rid of everything. Now, logically speaking, it makes no sense, because those who are behind this technology, these criminals that are behind destroying all life on Earth, obviously will be affected as well. The extent to which this destruction is going to occur will be very evident and clear, very likely over the next 5 years or less, because as Durnford has documented, the Pacific Ocean has been irrevocably damaged or killed by this nuclear plant that is disseminating all its ugly, deadly isotopes in tons and huge amounts every second of every day. So we're kind of like ripping out our, hair. It's like, people like Lonnie Clark and Kevin Blanche and people that are out there attempting to, well, what I feel is different for me is that I don't try to externalize it to the extent that some other people on YouTube do. because I've recognized that the only change I can affect is in myself, because I can't say anything to you that isn't something you're going to want to do anyway. And does the information help to create this sense that the world is not what it appears to be? This is a big problem for me, because to understand the world is not what it appears to be, you don't necessarily need to follow the information. There is another way of approaching this. And this is what I've come to learn through my YouTubes. This is interesting for me. I had a conversation today with a friend, and I said that the YouTubes were primarily, I did this in order to hear myself like a painting. I see what it is that I'm feeling, thinking. It's for myself. And I'm coming to terms with this. I understand this now, that my process in this has been to bring some of this awareness that I intuitively may have into a reality. And the idea that someone else may be affected by my ruminations and meditations on this, whether it'll be through a painting in the back or whether it's my words, they're very similar. They're very similar. And I'm dedicated and committed to this concept that the world is not what it appears to be. This is a very crucial part. And then you can break that down into your own fight, into your own fight. I think everybody has, any conscious person of conscience will pick their fight, because there is a lot of stuff that needs to be set right if we're going to make it through this period. And it'll take literally millions of people to get to this level of recognition, preferably billions, but I'm saying millions because I think there is an effect, there is a ripple effect as this settles in. The world is not what it appears to be, people. And to say, and to go back into our shell and say, well, it's the Lord wants it that way, or go in peace and it's wonderful and all. No, this is not how it works. We are defending not just ourselves. What is at stake is all of life. Yes, all of life. That's what's at stake. This is how I perceive this. This is why I am committed and continue to do what I do, even though there have been attacks and my channel has been mirrored and I've been ridiculed, and not even to the extent that other people who are much stronger than myself, what they endure. But that was just a blip. That was a blip. It's something that I recognized. It took a little while for me to sort of see how the subterfuge was trying to discourage me. The world is not what it appears to be. People that are critical, that don't have a face for the most part. They never have a face. These criticizers, these people that are trying to take people of conscience down, don't have a face. So that reveals their nature. That is basically, it'll show you that a person that is unrecognizable in any way is doing subterfuge. No doubt about it. Don't even wonder about it. That's what's happening. And that's how I know that they are not on the level. They're dishonest. They're deceivers. They're a controlled opposition. They try to muddy the water. So my point is that my reflection on this is the jig is up. The jig is up. This is what I'm feeling, sensing, observing, based on the idea that this technology became the go-to technology, which is not to say there aren't a lot of other challenges, from geoengineering to vaccinations to pharmaceuticals to the toxicity. The level of toxicity is incredible, but geoengineering, chemical toxicities can all be turned off, can be turned off. Here is a technology that can't be turned off. And we have over 450 facilities on Earth that produce this toxic shit, and it can't be turned off. So whoever, yes, pick your fight. The Wigington guy, the geoengineering, absolutely, 100%, it's happening. And I actually believe I'm beginning to feel certain difficulties through my ears. And I think I'm absorbing some of this material through my ears. I'm having difficulty with my ears. I'm having it looked at. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I actually probably have to go on a detox. I do fasts, so I'm going to have to do a fast to try and support my immune system again, not to go down with the toxicity levels. Now, at which point are we totally helpless? That's the question. I think there are a lot of things we can do in order to support our immune system. And there are people out there that know about this very well. And one of the things I suggest people is check out Bernard Jensen and deep tissue cleansing, because fasting, and fasting not just by itself, but it has to include deep tissue cleansing. You look it up and see how you can support your immune system. So this was my reflection today as I was working, and I thought to myself that the dishonesty is ratcheting up, especially on YouTube, and people being disparaged, and things are thrown out. All the sort of Hollywood connection to things. Disney being the modern day Goebbels in a sense. You know, he's like Disney was the front man for these deceivers through Hollywood, and Hollywood continues to do this. But these are just moot points as far as I'm concerned, because we're facing now the fear on the controllers that the jig is up. The jig is up. And the go-to and the fallback position was to create a technology that fundamentally will end everything. It's sort of like a spiteful thing. It's like quite sick. It's like demented. It's so deranged. It's so dysfunctional. It makes no sense. But that's the nature of being dishonest. It's irrational. Dishonesty is totally and utterly irrational because it's predicated on someone losing and someone winning. You see, it's like that. Well, anyway. So I do suspect my conclusion is that we're being now subjected to the ultimate event in our experience, which is an extermination on a level that has never been witnessed. And all that stuff in history about dinosaurs and oil created because a bunch of dinosaurs were crushed is so ridiculous. It's crazy. It's nuts. Oil is not that. So whatever you get in this, I suppose is a bit longer, but whatever you get within this culture, what I call the culture of death, the material that we're being supplied with. Why would we believe a scientist like Hawking? Why would we believe someone who's fundamentally fucked everything up? And their theories, they're unproven theories. And people still adhering to the idea that the world is what they tell us it is. I mean, it's our fundamental duty to question everything. And if somebody says to me, the earth is a ball and we saw it from outer space, it's a bunch of hooey, because the picture they use is the same picture over and over. It's a CGI, it's computer, it's Photoshopped, it's a painting. It is. I mean, what else can we, and to adhere to sort of part of it. No, throw it all out. And if some of it is right, we'll get to it eventually. We'll figure it out. But we don't believe people that have fundamentally destroyed everything. Why would I believe in a cult called science that has fucked everything up for us and then say, well, you know, it's like, oh, they're okay over here, but not okay over there. Throw them all out. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Why would I accept any of their theories and notions that actually are fabrications and fairy tales? I can present the same fairy tale to you through my paintings. Well, anyway, the best thing, in conclusion, the best thing I can say, what I've kept repeating over and over again about the nature of our reality, the worldview that I've developed is that the only chance I feel that we have is to go back to the fundamentals, the very nature of our being. And what is that? The very nature of, in every human being, that is part of life, not part of deception, but part of this generosity, this life, this breathing, giving thing, is that we have the choice to do the right thing. And it takes practice. It takes doing over and over and over. And when we make a mistake, we say, this was wrong, I better fix it. And we need to be open to ourselves that we have this potential within us. That's what I've been saying. That we work with that good part in us, what I call our conscience. It's something that I recognized very early on, but I excused away in many different ways because I was taught to. I was said, you can compromise on this. Don't worry about that. Just compromise. It's okay. So we can't compromise on this very basic essence, because when we do, we give up our birthright and we're finished. We're done. And then the reptiles, the hyenas, can come in, take the place over, and if they see it's not working for them anymore, they're going to introduce their default switch, their fail-safe switch, which has been the nuclear destruction. The age of fission, as I call it, is the default mechanism to give it, to end it all, because either we have it our way or no way.